The Innocent Man. Chapter 1. The Arrest. Raymond Carter never expected his life to change so drastically on that brisk autumn morning. The small town of Millwood was just waking up, the sun casting a warm glow over the dew-kissed grass. Raymond, a modest accountant with a spotless record, was sipping his coffee and reading the morning paper when the loud knock echoed through his small, quaint home. Confused, he opened the door to find two stern-faced police officers standing on his porch. "Raymond Carter?" one of them asked, his tone leaving no room for denial. "Yes, that's me," Raymond replied, his heart beginning to pound. "What's this about?" "Mr. Carter, you're under arrest for the murder of Emily Prescott." The words hit Raymond like a freight train. Emily Prescott? He barely knew her, just a friendly neighbor he occasionally exchanged pleasantries with. "There must be some mistake," he stammered. "I didn't do anything." But the officers were unmoved. They read him his rights, handcuffed him, and led him to the waiting patrol car. The neighbors peeked from behind curtains, their curiosity piqued by the unexpected commotion. As Raymond was driven away, his mind raced. Who would believe that he, a man who'd never so much as gotten a parking ticket, could commit such a heinous act? And more importantly, how could he prove his innocence? Chapter 2. The Lawyer. In a small, cluttered office downtown, Lisa Tanner was juggling 3 cases at once when her phone rang. She was a public defender, known for her tenacity and a soft spot for underdogs. "Tanner," she answered, pushing a stack of files to the side. "Lisa, it's Judge Matheson. I need you to take on a new case. A murder charge." Lisa sighed. Murder cases were always the most draining, both emotionally and physically. "Who's the client?" "Raymond Carter. Never been in trouble with the law before. The evidence is, well, it's complicated." "Complicated how?" Lisa asked, grabbing a notepad. "Just meet him. He's at the county jail. I think you'll understand once you talk to him." Curiosity piqued, Lisa agreed. A few hours later, she found herself sitting across from Raymond Carter in a cold, gray interview room. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Carter, I'm Lisa Tanner, your public defender. Can you tell me what happened?" Raymond took a deep breath and recounted the events of the morning. He explained his shock, his confusion, and his absolute certainty that he had nothing to do with Emily Prescott's death. Lisa listened carefully, taking notes. She could see the fear in Raymond's eyes, but there was also something else, determination. "All right, Mr. Carter. I'll need to go through the evidence, but I believe you. We're going to fight this." Raymond nodded, a flicker of hope lighting his eyes. "Thank you, Miss Tanner. I just want to prove my innocence." Lisa stood up, her mind already racing through the possible defenses and strategies. She knew this case was going to be an uphill battle, but there was something about Raymond that made her want to fight even harder. As she left the jail, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this case than met the eye. Chapter 3. The Evidence. Lisa Tanner sat at her desk, files spread out in front of her, each one a piece of a puzzle she was determined to solve. The evidence against Raymond Carter seemed damning at first glance. There were fingerprints, a murder weapon, and even a witness who claimed to have seen him near Emily Prescott's house on the night of the murder. But Lisa knew better than to take things at face value. She started with the witness, an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Hargrove. According to the police report, Mrs. Hargrove had seen Raymond walking towards Emily's house around 9 p.m. Lisa decided to pay her a visit. Mrs. Hargrove lived in a small, tidy house filled with the scent of lavender. She was a petite woman with sharp eyes and a keen memory. "Mrs. Hargrove, I'm Lisa Tanner, Raymond Carter's lawyer. Can you tell me what you saw the night Emily Prescott was murdered?" The old woman adjusted her glasses and nodded. "I saw Raymond walking down the street. It was unusual because he never goes out at night." "Are you certain it was Raymond?" Lisa asked, noting the detail. "As certain as I can be." I've lived here for 30 years. I know everyone in this neighborhood. Lisa thanked Mrs. Hargrove and left, her mind buzzing with questions. If Raymond had been seen near Emily's house, why hadn't anyone else noticed him? She needed more information. Back at her office, Lisa dug into the forensic reports. The fingerprints on the murder weapon, a kitchen knife, were indeed Raymond's. But the knife was from his own kitchen, something anyone could have taken if they had access to his house. Then there was the matter of the motive. Emily Prescott was a quiet woman, known for her charitable work and gentle nature. Why would anyone want to kill her? And why frame Raymond? Lisa's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. It was Detective Sam Rogers, an old acquaintance from her days at the DA's office. "Sam, what brings you here?" "I heard you took on the Carter case," he said, taking a seat. "Thought I'd give you a heads up. There's more to this than you know." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked, intrigued. Emily Prescott was investigating something big. She was digging into some financial records, looking for evidence of embezzlement in a local charity. "My guess is she found something she shouldn't have." Lisa's heart raced. "Do you think her murder is connected to this?" "Could be, but you'll have to find the proof. And be careful, Lisa. Whoever did this won't hesitate to strike again." Chapter 4. The Hidden Agenda. Raymond Carter sat alone in his cell, the cold concrete walls pressing in on him. His thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and confusion. How had his life turned upside down so quickly? He missed the simplicity of his routine, the quiet of his home, and most of all, he missed the sense of safety he had taken for granted. Lisa Tanner arrived later that afternoon, her expression grim but determined. "Raymond, we need to talk. I think there's more to Emily's murder than meets the eye." Raymond looked at her, hope flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Emily was investigating some financial discrepancies in a local charity. She might have uncovered something dangerous. It's possible her murder was meant to silence her. Raymond's mind raced. "But why frame me?" Lisa sighed. "You were an easy target. No criminal record, no known enemies. The perfect scapegoat." Raymond slumped back in his chair. "So what do we do now?" "We find out what Emily discovered. We need to get access to her files, her notes, anything that can give us a clue." As they talked, the gravity of the situation sank in. They were up against more than just a murder charge. They were up against a conspiracy. Lisa knew they had to act fast. Whoever was behind this wouldn't wait for them to catch up. The next day, Lisa visited Emily's house, now a crime scene. She flashed her badge at the officer on duty and was allowed inside. The house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos that must have ensued the night of the murder. Lisa searched through Emily's belongings, looking for anything that might hint at her investigation. In Emily's study, Lisa found a locked drawer. After some searching, she located the key hidden beneath a stack of books. Inside the drawer were files, notebooks, and a flash drive. Lisa took everything, knowing it could be the key to proving Raymond's innocence. Back at her office, she combed through the files. Emily had been thorough. There were records of donations, bank statements, and notes on various board members of the charity. One name kept popping up: Martin Klein, the charity's treasurer. According to Emily's notes, Klein had been embezzling funds for years, covering his tracks with false reports and fake donors. Lisa felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the proof she needed. But it also meant they were in dangerous territory. If Klein had killed Emily to protect his secret, he wouldn't hesitate to strike again. She called Detective Rogers and filled him in on her findings. "We need to bring Klein in," she said. "He's our prime suspect." "Agreed," Rogers replied. "But we need to be careful. If he's willing to kill to protect himself, he won't go down without a fight." As Lisa hung up the phone, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against the clock. The stakes were higher than ever, and one wrong move could cost them everything. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. The next morning, Lisa Tanner and Detective Sam Rogers stood outside Martin Klein's luxurious home. The sprawling estate, with its meticulously manicured lawns and imposing facade, was a stark reminder of the wealth and power Klein wielded. Lisa felt a knot of apprehension tighten in her stomach. This was it, the moment of truth. "Ready?" Rogers asked, his hand resting on the holster of his gun. Lisa nodded, her resolve firm. "Let's do this." They approached the front door, and Rogers knocked sharply. Moments later, Martin Klein himself answered, his expression one of surprise quickly masked by a veneer of politeness. "Detective Rogers, Miss Tanner, what can I do for you?" he asked smoothly. "We need to talk, Mr. Klein," Rogers said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "May we come in?" Klein hesitated, a flicker of unease crossing his face, but he stepped aside and allowed them to enter. Inside, the house was as grand and opulent as the exterior, a testament to Klein's ill-gotten gains. They settled in the living room, Klein taking a seat opposite Lisa and Rogers. "What's this about?" Klein asked, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a hint of nervousness. "We have reason to believe that Emily Prescott was investigating financial discrepancies within the charity you oversee," Lisa began, watching Klein's reaction closely. "Specifically, embezzlement." Klein's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation, Miss Tanner. Do you have any proof?" Lisa placed a folder on the coffee table, opening it to reveal copies of Emily's notes and bank statements. "Emily was thorough. She documented everything. We believe she discovered your embezzlement and that you killed her to keep her quiet." Klein's eyes flicked to the documents, his jaw tightening. "This is preposterous. I had nothing to do with Emily's death." "Then why did her notes point directly to you?" Rogers interjected. "Why did she feel the need to hide this information if there was nothing to hide?" Klein's composure began to crack. "You can't prove any of this. It's all circumstantial." "Maybe," Lisa admitted, "but it's enough to get a warrant. And once we have access to all your financial records, it's only a matter of time before we find the smoking gun." Klein's face turned pale, and for a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then, in a sudden burst of anger, he stood up, his chair toppling over. "Get out of my house. Now." Lisa and Rogers exchanged a glance but didn't argue. They had what they needed, a reaction that confirmed their suspicions. As they left, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they were closer than ever to exposing the truth. Back at her office, Lisa began preparing the paperwork for a search warrant. She knew they had to move quickly before Klein could cover his tracks. Detective Rogers coordinated with the judge, and by evening they had the warrant in hand. The raid took place early the next morning. A team of officers descended on Klein's home, seizing computers, files, and any other potential evidence. Klein was arrested and taken into custody, his once confident demeanor replaced by one of desperation. In the days that followed, the investigation yielded more than Lisa could have hoped for. Hidden accounts, falsified records, and evidence of substantial sums of money being siphoned off over the years. Klein's elaborate scheme was laid bare, and with it, the motive for Emily's murder became undeniable. As Lisa prepared for the upcoming trial, she felt a sense of justice on the horizon. But she knew they weren't done yet. Raymond Carter's freedom depended on proving Klein's guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt. Chapter 6. The trial begins. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial of Martin Klein began. Reporters jostled for position, their cameras flashing as Klein was led in, handcuffed and flanked by guards. He looked every bit the part of a fallen titan, his expensive suit doing little to mask the air of desperation that clung to him. Lisa Tanner sat at the defense table next to Raymond Carter, who looked markedly more hopeful than he had in weeks. She glanced over at Klein and then at the prosecutor, a sharp-minded woman named Carla Perez, who was known for her unyielding pursuit of justice. The judge, an imposing figure with a reputation for fairness, called the court to order. The state of North Carolina versus Martin Klein is now in session. Are both sides ready to proceed? Ready, Your Honor, Carla Perez responded confidently. Ready, Your Honor, Lisa echoed, feeling the weight of the moment. Carla Perez wasted no time in her opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will see that Martin Klein embezzled funds from a charity meant to help those in need. When Emily Prescott discovered his scheme, she became a threat to his freedom and his wealth. He silenced her in the most permanent way possible by taking her life. She outlined the evidence: the financial records, Emily's meticulous notes, and the timeline that placed Klein at the scene of the crime. The jury listened intently, their expressions ranging from shock to anger. When it was Lisa's turn, she stood and faced the jury, her heart pounding. My client, Raymond Carter, is an innocent man. He has been wrongfully accused of a crime he did not commit. We will show that the evidence against Mr. Carter was fabricated to divert attention from the real criminal, Martin Klein. We ask you to keep an open mind and to consider all the evidence before you render your verdict. The first few days of the trial were grueling. Witnesses testified, including Mrs. Hargrove, who nervously reiterated her claim of seeing Raymond near Emily's house. The prosecution presented their case with precision, painting a picture of a man driven to murder by desperation. But Lisa was ready. She called Detective Rogers to the stand, and he detailed the investigation that uncovered Klein's embezzlement. The jury listened, intrigued by the web of deceit Klein had woven. Next, Lisa presented the forensic evidence. The fingerprints on the knife were indeed Raymond's, but they also found prints belonging to Klein on the handle, a detail the prosecution had conveniently overlooked. She called a forensic expert who explained how easy it would have been for someone with access to Raymond's house to plant the knife. Then came the bombshell. Lisa introduced Emily's flash drive, which contained encrypted files. With the help of a cyber expert, they had decrypted the files, revealing emails and messages that linked Klein directly to the embezzlement and to threats made against Emily. The courtroom was silent as the emails were read aloud. You will regret crossing me, one message from Klein to Emily stated. Another threatened, keep digging, and you'll end up in a place you don't want to be. Klein's lawyer tried to dismiss the emails as fabrications, but the expert's testimony was airtight. The jury was visibly affected, their belief in Klein's innocence rapidly eroding. Throughout the trial, Raymond remained composed, his faith in Lisa unwavering. He knew this was his only chance at freedom, and he trusted her implicitly. As the trial drew to a close, Lisa made her final plea to the jury. Martin Klein's greed led to Emily Prescott's death. He framed an innocent man to save himself. I ask you to see the truth and to deliver justice for both Emily and Raymond. The jury deliberated for hours, each minute feeling like an eternity. Finally, they returned, their expression solemn. The foreman stood and read the verdict. We find the defendant, Martin Klein, guilty of embezzlement and murder in the first degree. A collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom. Raymond Carter was free, his innocence finally recognized. As he hugged Lisa, tears of gratitude in his eyes, he whispered, "Thank you. You saved my life." Lisa smiled, her heart full. Justice was on our side, Raymond. Now go live your life. You deserve it. As they left the courtroom, the weight of the ordeal lifted, and the promise of a new beginning dawned for Raymond Carter, the innocent man who had finally been vindicated. Chapter 7. A New Dawn. Raymond Carter stepped out of the courthouse into the bright sunlight, the crisp autumn air filling his lungs. For the first time in weeks, he felt truly free. The nightmare that had consumed his life was finally over. Beside him, Lisa Tanner smiled, her eyes reflecting the satisfaction of a job well done. "What's next for you, Raymond?" she asked as they walked down the steps. Raymond paused, taking in the bustling scene around him. I think I need some time to figure that out. Everything feels surreal, but I'm grateful. More than I can say. Lisa nodded. Take your time. You've been through a lot. And remember, if you ever need anything, I'm just a phone call away. As Raymond began to rebuild his life, Lisa returned to her office, the events of the trial still fresh in her mind. The case had been challenging, but it had also reaffirmed her belief in the importance of justice and the power of perseverance. She knew there would be more battles ahead, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace. Days turned into weeks, and Raymond slowly found his footing. He returned to his job at the accounting firm, where his colleagues welcomed him back with open arms. The community of Millwood, once rife with suspicion, now rallied around him, offering support and encouragement. One afternoon, as Raymond was going through some old files at work, he stumbled upon a letter addressed to him. It was from Emily Prescott, written just days before her death. With trembling hands, he opened it. "Dear Raymond," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. I'm sorry for dragging you into this mess. I knew the risks, but I couldn't let the truth stay buried. I hope Lisa finds this and can use it to help you. Stay strong. Emily." Enclosed with the letter was a small notebook, filled with Emily's handwritten notes about the charity's finances. It was another piece of the puzzle, confirming everything they had uncovered during the trial. Emily had known the danger she faced, yet she had pressed on, determined to see justice served. Raymond felt a surge of emotion. Emily's bravery had ultimately saved him, and her sacrifice had not been in vain. He decided to honor her memory by continuing her work, volunteering at the charity she had fought so hard to protect. It was a way to give back, to ensure that her legacy lived on. Meanwhile, Martin Klein faced the consequences of his actions. Sentenced to life in prison, he would never again taste the freedom he had so callously stolen from others. His downfall served as a stark reminder that no one was above the law, and that justice, though sometimes delayed, would prevail. As the months passed, Raymond's life slowly returned to normal. He found joy in simple things: a walk in the park, a friendly chat with neighbors, the quiet satisfaction of a day's work well done. He no longer took anything for granted, having learned the hard way how quickly it could all be taken away. Lisa continued to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, each case a testament to her dedication and skill. She and Raymond stayed in touch, their bond forged in the crucible of adversity. Every now and then, they'd meet for coffee, reminiscing about the trial and the incredible journey they had shared. One evening, as the sun set over Millwood, Raymond stood on his porch, looking out over the peaceful street. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for his freedom, for the people who had stood by him, and for the second chance at life he had been given. He knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. With Emily's spirit as his guide and Lisa's unwavering support, he was determined to make the most of his new beginning. The innocent man had been vindicated, and with his newfound strength, he was ready to embrace the future, one day at a time. The end. The Dark Path, Chapter 1. A Deadly Discovery. Detective John Heller stared at the corpse in the alley, the neon lights from the nearby bar casting an eerie glow on the scene. The victim, a middle-aged man in a dark suit, lay face down in a pool of his own blood. His briefcase, still clasped in his left hand, was the only clue that hinted at his identity. "Who found him?" Heller asked, glancing at Officer Rodriguez, who was taking notes nearby. A passerby said he was walking his dog and stumbled upon the body. Rodriguez replied, not looking up from his notepad. "Name's Martin Elliott, a corporate lawyer. Lives a few blocks from here." Heller nodded, his mind already working through the possibilities. A corporate lawyer murdered in an alleyway usually meant one of two things. Either he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or he knew something he shouldn't have. Heller had a hunch it was the latter. He crouched down next to the body, careful not to disturb any evidence. The man's face was bruised, and there were defensive wounds on his hands. Heller's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a hit, it was personal. Rodriguez, get the CSU down here. I want this place combed for every scrap of evidence, Heller ordered, standing up and brushing off his hands. And find out who Elliot was working with recently. I have a feeling this wasn't just a random attack. Rodriguez nodded and stepped aside to make the call. Heller took another look around the alley, his gaze lingering on the shadows that seemed to dance just out of reach. Something about this case felt off, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface of something much darker. As the CSU team arrived and began their work, Heller's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, frowning when he saw the caller ID. It was his old partner, Lisa Reynolds, who had transferred to the cybercrime unit a year ago. "Lisa, what's up?" Heller answered, stepping away from the bustling crime scene. "John, I think we have a problem," Lisa said, her voice tense. "I was going through some old case files and came across something you need to see. It might be connected to your lawyer in the alley." Heller's heart skipped a beat. Lisa was one of the best detectives he knew, and if she thought there was a connection, he trusted her instincts. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, already heading towards his car. As he drove through the rain-slicked streets of the city, Heller couldn't help but wonder what Lisa had found. He had a sinking feeling that this case was about to take a turn for the worse. Chapter 2. The Unseen Threat. Lisa's office was in the basement of the police headquarters, a dimly lit space filled with stacks of files and the hum of computer servers. Heller found her hunched over her desk, scrolling through a series of digital documents. "John, you need to see this," she said, motioning for him to come closer. "I've been digging into Martin Elliott's background, and it looks like he was involved in a high-profile case about 6 months ago. A whistleblower case against a tech giant, Zenith Corporation." Heller's eyebrows shot up. Zenith Corporation was known for its aggressive legal team and deep pockets. "You're saying this is related to that case?" Lisa nodded, her expression grim. Elliott was the lead attorney for the whistleblower. They were trying to expose some serious corruption within Zenith. But here's the kicker. 3 months ago, the whistleblower, a guy named Eric Palmer, disappeared without a trace. Heller felt a chill run down his spine. And now Elliott turns up dead. Looks like someone is tying up loose ends. "Exactly," Lisa said, pulling up a map on her computer screen. "I've been tracking any unusual activity around Zenith's main offices, and there's been a spike in security measures recently. More guards, encrypted communications, the works. They're hiding something big." Heller stared at the screen, his mind racing. "We need to find out what Zenith is so desperate to keep secret, and we need to do it fast before anyone else gets killed." Lisa nodded in agreement. "I've already started digging into their financial records and communications, but it's going to take time. In the meantime, you might want to pay a visit to Zenith CEO Thomas Drake. See if you can rattle his cage a bit." Heller smiled grimly. "Rattling cages is what I do best." As Heller left the basement and made his way to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a hornet's nest. Zenith Corporation was powerful, and going up against them was like poking a bear. But he knew they didn't have a choice. If they didn't uncover the truth, more people would die. Driving towards Zenith's sleek glass headquarters, Heller reviewed everything he knew about Thomas Drake. The man was a notorious control freak, known for his ruthless business tactics and zero tolerance for failure. Heller had no doubt that Drake would stonewall him, but he was determined to get answers. The lobby of Zenith Corporation was a stark contrast to the gritty streets outside. Polished marble floors, gleaming metal accents, and a reception desk manned by impeccably dressed staff. Heller showed his badge and was directed to a waiting area. After a few tense minutes, a tall, imposing man with silver hair approached. "Detective Heller, I'm Thomas Drake. I understand you have some questions for me." Heller stood up, meeting Drake's cold gaze. Mr. Drake, I'd like to talk to you about Martin Elliott and Eric Palmer. I'm investigating their cases, and I believe Zenith might have some information that could help. Drake's expression didn't change, but Heller saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Detective, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Zenith Corporation conducts its business with the utmost integrity. If you have any accusations, I suggest you bring them up with our legal team. Heller stepped closer, lowering his voice. This isn't just about business, Mr. Drake. 2 men are dead, and I think you know why. If you don't start cooperating, I will tear this company apart piece by piece until I find what I'm looking for. Drake's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Heller knew he had hit a nerve, and he intended to keep pushing until he got the answers he needed. Chapter 3. A Trail of Secrets. Heller left Zenith's headquarters feeling a mix of frustration and determination. Drake had stonewalled him, but the flicker of unease in the CEO's eyes had confirmed his suspicions. There was something worth hiding, and Heller intended to uncover it. Back at the precinct, he found Rodriguez waiting for him with an update. Boss, we've got something interesting from the CSU. They found traces of an uncommon chemical compound on Elliott's briefcase. It's used primarily in high-tech manufacturing. Heller's ears perked up. Anything that ties it back to Zenith? Rodriguez shook his head. Not directly, but it's a lead. The compound is registered to only a handful of companies in the state, and Zenith is one of them. Heller nodded thoughtfully. Good work. Get the team to cross-reference any shipments of this compound with Zenith's supply chain. There's a connection here, and I want to know what it is. As Rodriguez set to work, Heller's phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. Come to my office. Found something big. Curiosity piqued. Heller made his way back to Lisa's office. She greeted him with a grim smile and handed him a file. John, take a look at this. It's from Zenith's financials. There are significant, unexplained transactions to a shell company based offshore. Millions of dollars. Heller flipped through the pages, his mind racing. Money laundering? Possibly, but there's more, Lisa continued. I traced the shell company's activities and found a link to a private security firm called Blackguard. They specialize in corporate espionage and other unsavory activities. Heller's eyes narrowed. So, Zenith is paying Blackguard for something. Could be to deal with the whistleblower and Elliott. That's my guess, Lisa said. But we need solid proof. I managed to hack into Blackguard's network. They're paranoid, but I found some encrypted files. If we can crack them, we might get the evidence we need. Great work, Lisa. Keep at it. In the meantime, I'll pay a visit to Blackguard's offices. Maybe I can dig up something useful. Heller left the precinct, his mind buzzing with possibilities. Blackguard's headquarters were located in a nondescript office building on the outskirts of the city. The place was a fortress, with security cameras and guards posted at every entrance. Heller flashed his badge at the front desk and demanded to see the manager. After a tense wait, a tall, muscular man with a shaved head approached. I'm Gregor Reed, head of security. What can I do for you, detective? I need to ask you some questions about a client of yours. Zenith Corporation, Heller said, watching Reed's reaction closely. Reed's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. I'm afraid I can't discuss our clients with you. Confidentiality agreements. 2 men are dead, Mr. Reed, Heller said, leaning forward. If Blackguard is involved, I will find out. Cooperation might save you a lot of trouble. Reed smirked. You think you can intimidate me, detective? We're professionals. We don't leave loose ends. Heller felt a surge of anger but kept his voice steady. We'll see about that. I'll be back with a warrant. As he left, Heller couldn't shake the feeling that Reed was hiding something. He needed more leverage, something to break Blackguard's facade. And he knew exactly where to start. Eric Palmer's last known location. Chapter 4. The Last Witness. Eric Palmer had disappeared 3 months ago, but his apartment remained untouched. Heller obtained a warrant and, with Rodriguez by his side, entered the small, sparsely furnished space. It was clear Palmer had left in a hurry. Clothes were strewn about, and personal items lay abandoned. "Let's search for anything that might give us a clue about where he went," Heller instructed. They began combing through the apartment, checking every drawer, every nook and cranny. In the bedroom, Rodriguez called out, "Boss, you might want to see this." Heller joined him to find a hidden compartment under the bed. Inside was a laptop, its battery long dead. "Good find, Rodriguez. Let's get this back to Lisa. Maybe she can recover something useful." As they prepared to leave, Heller's phone buzzed with a call from Lisa. "John, I cracked part of the encryption. You're not going to believe this. Blackguard has a facility outside the city, a place they use for interrogations. The files mention Palmer being taken there." Heller's pulse quickened. "Send me the address. We're heading there now." The facility was located in a remote area, surrounded by dense woods. Heller and Rodriguez parked a distance away and approached on foot, their eyes scanning for any signs of security. The building was a squat, concrete structure with minimal windows and a single reinforced door. "Looks like a fortress," Rodriguez muttered. "How do you want to play this?" "We need to get inside without alerting them," Heller said. "Let's scout the perimeter first." They moved cautiously around the building, noting security cameras and motion sensors. On the far side, they found a small service entrance, its lock old and rusty. "This might be our way in," Heller said, pulling out a set of lockpicks. Within minutes, he had the door open, and they slipped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with narrow hallways leading to various rooms. They moved quietly, avoiding the occasional patrol. In the basement, they found what they were looking for: a series of cells, each one equipped with restraints and surveillance equipment. "Jesus," Rodriguez whispered. "What the hell is this place?" Heller's eyes scanned the cells, stopping at one that looked recently used. Inside, he found a blood-stained chair and a set of discarded clothes. "Palmer was here. We need to find out what happened to him." As they searched the room, Heller's phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "More info. Looks like Palmer was moved to a secondary location after being interrogated here. Coordinates attached." Heller glanced at the coordinates and swore under his breath. "They moved him to an old warehouse downtown. We need to get there now." As they retraced their steps and exited the facility, Heller couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Palmer was the key to unraveling Zenith's secrets, and if they didn't find him soon, they might lose their only lead. Driving at breakneck speed, they made their way to the warehouse. The building was abandoned, its windows boarded up and doors chained shut. Heller and Rodriguez cut through the chains and stepped inside, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Spread out," Heller said. "He's got to be here somewhere." They moved methodically through the warehouse, checking every corner. In a back room, they found a man, disheveled and weak, chained to a pipe. His eyes widened in fear as they approached. "Eric Palmer?" Heller asked, kneeling beside him. "We're here to help." Palmer nodded weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "You have to stop them. They're going to kill everyone who knows." "Who, Eric? Who's behind this?" Heller pressed. "Zenith and Blackguard. They're hiding something big. A project called Dark Path." Heller exchanged a grim look with Rodriguez. They had found their lead, but it was clear this conspiracy ran deeper than they had imagined. And now they were right in the middle of it. Chapter 5. Unraveling the Web. Back at the precinct, Palmer was placed in a secure room, and Heller watched through the one-way glass as a medical team tended to him. Lisa joined him, her face a mix of relief and concern. "He's been through hell," Lisa said quietly, "but he's a survivor. We need to get every piece of information he has." Heller nodded, eyes fixed on Palmer. "I'll talk to him once he's stable. In the meantime, keep digging into this Dark Path project. We need to know what we're up against." A few hours later, Palmer was ready to talk. Heller entered the room, sitting across from the exhausted man. "Eric, I know this is hard, but we need to know everything about Dark Path." Palmer took a deep breath, his eyes haunted. Dark Path is a project Zenith has been developing in secret. It's a powerful AI system designed to infiltrate and manipulate global financial markets. They're planning to use it to control economies, destabilize governments. It's monstrous. Heller felt a cold chill. "Why did they target you?" "I was a lead developer," Palmer explained. "When I discovered the true purpose of Dark Path, I tried to expose it. That's when they came after me. They're ruthless, detective. They'll kill anyone who stands in their way." "Do you have any proof?" Heller asked urgently. Palmer nodded weakly. "I managed to copy some files before I went on the run. They're hidden on a secure server. I can give you the access codes, but you'll need to act fast. Zenith has powerful connections. They'll try to shut it down once they realize you're onto them." Heller stood up, determination burning in his eyes. "Give us the codes, Eric. We'll take it from here." Palmer handed over a piece of paper with the codes. "Be careful, detective. They won't hesitate to eliminate you too." Heller left the room, his mind racing. He relayed the information to Lisa, who immediately began working on accessing the server. "This might take some time," she warned. "Their security is top-notch." "Do whatever it takes," Heller said. "We're running out of time." Hours passed in tense silence as Lisa worked tirelessly to break through the encryption. Finally, she let out a triumphant cry. "Got it! The files are here. And John, you're not going to believe this." Heller leaned over her shoulder, scanning the documents. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Zenith's reach extended far beyond corporate espionage. They had ties to political figures, law enforcement, even international crime syndicates. Dark Path was the linchpin of a global power grab. "We need to take this public," Heller said, his voice steely. "Expose them before they can cover their tracks." Lisa nodded. "I'll start preparing the files for release. But John, this is going to put us all in danger. Zenith won't go down without a fight." Heller met her gaze, unwavering. "We knew the risks. Let's finish this." Chapter 6. The Final Gambit. As Lisa worked to compile the files, Heller and Rodriguez gathered their team for a briefing. "We're up against the clock," Heller said. "Once Zenith realizes we have this information, they'll come after us. We need to secure Palmer and prepare for a potential assault." The team nodded, tension thick in the air. They set up a secure perimeter around the precinct and moved Palmer to a hidden safe house. Heller coordinated with federal agents to ensure maximum protection, knowing they were about to unleash a storm. Hours later, as dawn broke, Lisa finished preparing the files. "It's ready, John. Once we hit send, there's no turning back." Heller took a deep breath. "Do it." With a few keystrokes, Lisa sent the files to major news outlets, law enforcement agencies, and international watchdogs. Almost immediately, the response was overwhelming. News of Zenith's sinister plans spread like wildfire, triggering a global outcry. But Heller knew the battle wasn't over. Zenith would retaliate, and they needed to be ready. As they monitored the fallout, reports came in of raids on Zenith facilities and arrests of key figures. The walls were closing in on Thomas Drake and his cronies. Suddenly, an alarm blared, signaling a breach. "They're here," Rodriguez shouted. "Get ready." Heller grabbed his weapon, adrenaline surging. Blackguard's operatives were storming the precinct, determined to silence Palmer and anyone else who stood in their way. The team took defensive positions, bracing for the onslaught. Gunfire erupted as Blackguard's men breached the entrance. Heller fired back, his training kicking in. "Hold the line," he shouted, coordinating with his team. They fought with everything they had, determined to protect Palmer and see justice done. Amid the chaos, Heller spotted Gregor Reed leading the assault. Their eyes met, and Heller felt a surge of rage. He broke cover, charging towards Reed, determined to end this once and for all. They clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, trading blows with deadly intent. Heller's training and sheer will gave him the edge, and he managed to disarm Reed, pinning him to the ground. "It's over, Reed," Heller growled. "Zenith's going down, and so are you." Reed spat blood, glaring up at him. "You think you've won, detective? This is bigger than you can imagine." Heller didn't flinch. "We'll see about that." As reinforcements arrived, the remaining blackguard operatives were subdued, and the precinct was secured. Heller helped his team round up the attackers, ensuring Palmer's safety. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the fight was far from over. In the aftermath, Heller and Lisa watched as news reports detailed the unfolding scandal. Zenith's executives were being arrested, their assets frozen, and their dark empire dismantled. The public outcry was immense, demanding justice for the lives ruined by Zenith's machinations. "Looks like we did it," Lisa said, a weary smile on her face. Heller nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "We exposed them, but the battle's just beginning. There will be trials, investigations. We need to stay vigilant." Lisa placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will, John. We've taken the first step. Now it's up to the world to hold them accountable." As they stood together, watching the dawn of a new day, Heller felt a sense of accomplishment. They had faced down a powerful enemy and emerged victorious. But more importantly, they had given a voice to the voiceless and shone a light on the darkest paths. Chapter 7. Justice Served. In the days following the raid, the entire world seemed to be watching. Zenith Corp's downfall was swift and dramatic. As federal agents combed through the company's records, more damning evidence emerged, revealing a tangled web of corruption, bribery, and illegal operations. The media dubbed it the corporate apocalypse, and the public demanded swift justice. Thomas Drake was the first to fall. Under intense scrutiny and pressure, he attempted to flee the country but was apprehended at a private airstrip. The image of the once mighty CEO in handcuffs became an instant symbol of corporate greed brought to its knees. Heller watched the news coverage with a grim satisfaction. His work wasn't done yet, but seeing Drake and his associates face justice was a significant victory. He and Lisa were summoned to Washington to provide testimony before a special congressional committee investigating Zenith's activities. The committee hearing was a media spectacle, with cameras flashing and reporters clamoring for statements. Heller and Lisa were escorted to the hearing room, where they took their seats before the panel of stern-faced senators. "Detective Heller, Agent Reynolds, thank you for being here today," the committee chairman began. "Your work has been instrumental in exposing one of the largest corporate scandals in recent history. We'd like to hear your account of how this investigation unfolded." Heller cleared his throat, glancing at Lisa for support. "It started with the murder of Martin Elliott, a corporate lawyer who was trying to expose Zenith's illegal activities. As we dug deeper, we discovered the existence of Project Dark Path, a sophisticated AI system designed to manipulate global markets and destabilize economies. With the help of Eric Palmer, a whistleblower, we were able to gather enough evidence to bring this to light." Lisa continued, detailing the technical aspects of their investigation and how they had uncovered the extensive network of corruption. The senators listened intently, occasionally interrupting with questions. As the hearing drew to a close, the chairman addressed them again. "Detective Heller, Agent Reynolds, your bravery and dedication have made a significant impact. The American people owe you a great debt." Outside the hearing room, Heller and Lisa were greeted by a crowd of reporters. They gave brief statements, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and integrity in the face of corruption. Back at the precinct, life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Heller continued his work, taking on new cases and helping his team adjust after the harrowing ordeal. But the Zenith case had changed him. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper commitment to justice. One evening, as he reviewed case files in his office, Heller received a call from Lisa. "John, I've got some news. Eric Palmer has been placed under federal protection. He's going to testify against Zenith's remaining operatives. He wanted to thank you personally." Heller smiled. "That's good to hear. Tell him he's the real hero. Without his courage, we might never have uncovered the truth." Lisa paused. "John, there's one more thing. The FBI wants to offer you a position. They're creating a task force to investigate corporate crimes and cyber threats. They need someone with your experience and tenacity." Heller leaned back in his chair, contemplating the offer. It was a chance to make an even bigger difference, to take the fight against corruption to the next level. "Tell them I'm interested," he said finally. "It's time to shine a light on more dark paths." Epilogue. A new dawn. Months later, Heller stood on the steps of the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., looking out over the bustling city. He had accepted the position and now led a team of dedicated agents committed to uncovering and prosecuting corporate crimes. Lisa had joined him, bringing her expertise in cyber investigations. Together, they formed a formidable partnership, driven by a shared mission to uphold justice and integrity. Their work was challenging, often dangerous, but deeply rewarding. The Zenith case had set a precedent, inspiring whistleblowers and investigators worldwide to come forward with their own stories of corruption and abuse. Heller's team became a beacon of hope, a symbol that no one was beyond the reach of justice. One crisp autumn morning, Heller received a letter from Eric Palmer. It was a heartfelt note of gratitude, expressing his relief and gratitude for the new lease on life he had been given. Palmer had relocated to a safe location, starting anew with the support of the Witness Protection Program. As Heller read the letter, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The fight against Zenith had been arduous, but it had also been a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of standing up for what is right. With renewed determination, Heller stepped into his office, ready to tackle the next challenge. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was prepared to face it head-on, knowing that the light of justice would always guide him through the darkest of times. And so, Detective John Heller continued his journey, ever vigilant, ever committed, always ready to confront the shadows and illuminate the truth. The end. If you enjoyed our story, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.